then follows a pretty horrifying scene, which is how Agnes is nearly gang raped by this group of outlaws. Um, it was, of course, a very difficult scene for the actress. Normally, when you do nude scenes, like in Basic Instinct, for example, you would then do them with a very small group of people. Only two actors were there on all the scenes. There was a very limited crew of 5-6 people at the maximum. Sometimes even only 3, the cameraman and somebody to do the sound, and that was it, and me. And here, of course, she had to do this scene with everybody around, at least 10 actors about. And then, of course, because it was night shooting and exterior, there was everybody was kind of around the set, and you could send them to the other side of the hill. But then many people had to work on the lamps and whatever because of the night shooting. So she was at display for the whole group of people, which must have been extremely excruciating for her. But she accepted that without a word of complaint and participated in that scene in the most intense way, I would say. All the costumes were done by an English costume designer. Her name is Yvonne Blake. She had made other costume movies like The Three Musketeers. But she was also living in Spain. And as you know, I told you before that this was a financial co-production between the Spanish, the Dutch, and the Americans. And because of that, we had a partially crew, Spanish and Dutch crew and cast. That was, of course, part of the necessities of the contracts. So therefore, Yvonne Blake, who was English, was also, because she was living in Spanish, had Spanish nationality. She was married to a Spanish man. So we used her also for that reason. Of course, she did a great job because I think the costumes are very well thought out. And I think, yeah, it's excellent work, very convincing. Now, the scene, if you see it, is one of the scenes where was, if you can see from several shots, completely unacceptable to the MPAA. So I had to cut a lot. I mean, it's amazing what Jennifer is willing to do there. And the MPAA, I don't know if they admired her, but they certainly decided to cut it out. It's still a lot of nudity. There is some nudity left in the movie, and we all know that Christianity and sexuality have never been really good friends, isn't it? I mean, the Apostle Paul again is really not much into sexuality and feels that you're better off not to have any sex, but if necessary, okay, then it has to be done, and you can be together as man and woman, but it's really not that great. And so Christianity has always been an enemy of sexuality, as pointed out very clearly by Nietzsche and other people. That has to do, of course, with the fact that sexuality and Christianity are competing. Sexuality points to the horizontal, sexuality points, Christianity points to the vertical. That's where we have a cross, of course. It's Jesus is crucified between vertical and horizontal, isn't it? It's between earth and heaven. Now she is copying, of course, what we saw before. She will say the same words that she is, I can feel you, soldier. Look at her movements of her legs. And so she reverses the parts, isn't it? She does as if she really likes it. I mean, people have said to me, how can you make a scene where the girl really seems to enjoy being raped? Of course, nothing is like that is the case. There's no reason to think that she enjoys it in any way. She acts that she is enjoying it. That is Milan Orbeck getting really interested. And And so it's all a device for her, a way of survival, what she hopes to achieve, of course, by participating, by giving Martin the illusion that there is something between them, as she tries here very hard. She hopes that he will protect her, that this will be the only rape that happens, and that she will not be gang raped by the rest. And Martin, of course, pretends again that he will not that he will allow that to happen, that he will allow the gang rape to happen. So she seems to have failed in her attempt to get Martin on her side. But then, of course, we find out that Martin is anyhow has tasted from something that he doesn't want to share anymore with anybody, and certainly not with Mr. Summer, who will continue for the next half hour to seduce, or to not even seduce, to get Agnes, but he will not allow that to happen, Rutger. From now on, he protects Agnes, and he creates a fire so that everybody will be distracted, and that the gang rape will not follow. Then basically he turns the tables by being helped by the fact that the statue moves, and he uses that as a reason to show that the saint, here the cardinal introduces that by looking at the saint, because now it's burning. Is this like a halo, a double halo, a halo that is from wood and a halo of fire? The Holy Spirit has descended on the image, on the statue, and basically like on a Pentecostal event, and it turns, and now it points, and Martin says, that's a good reason to distract everybody from now on, to get them all out of this place, so that they cannot rape the girl anymore, so she will be mine. He cannot really say, after having said mine and thine doesn't exist anymore, he can of course not say, okay, Agnes is yours too, although she's property. Basically, he doesn't want to share anymore. So here is already within 15-20 seconds, he's already disloyal to his own statements. But he is hiding this. He is hiding it behind, let's say, religious thinking. The blood that you see there is probably meaning, if I remember, must mean the end of her virginity. Because I don't think she has been cut by any knife or whatever. It was normal at that time that people, when there was somebody buried that had become sick by the plague, that you had this rattling sound, that you had to make a sound so that you would announce to other people that you were unclean, isn't it? It's like the lepers in Christian times had to shout out, unclean, unclean. This is like saying the same, unclean, plague. So, so they realized that this is introducing the plague really into the movie, isn't it? Although it's not used yet, it's introducing the theme of the plague that will become very dominant in the latter part of the movie, as we shall see. This is another example. The scene itself is just another example how these times were, of course. Yes, the girl has the dress of Agnes. Yes, it spells disaster. Yes, it spells that they took it off her and probably raped Agnes. At the same time, looking in her mouth, we realize that behavior of the male in general at that time, be it in sex or in any other ways with women, was like that. And so it's another sign of the times, It's just showing what kind of rules were, let's say, ruling medieval society. The movie is, in that respect, extremely realistic and shows nothing of any King Arthur kind of Knights of the Round Table feeling. It shows medieval times as it really was. And these were really bad times, people were killed left and right. And there are, of course, countries enough in our society now, mostly, of course, in Africa, where these things are still the norm, although we seem to believe that we have attained a higher level of civilization. Looking back, of course, at the 20th century, where we killed about 150 million people in Western European countries mostly, I mean, we have to ask ourselves if we have evolved in any way. Martin, of course, realizes that Summer is attacking Agnes again. Of course, he's going to ask her to do things that basically he feels that should not be done to Agnes anymore in any way. Now the knife comes back and cutting out the tongue we have just seen. So the threat is kind of gruesome. He's going to cut out her tongue. And Martin sees the castle. It's not that he thinks, okay, we have to go to this castle. He thinks, okay, I can stop here and pretending that we have to take this castle, so that basically he prevents Summer to continue. So it is not about the castle really in the first place. That it becomes about the castle because now he thinks, okay, perhaps we can distract him further by showing again that the statue points to the castle and that we have to take the castle. So it's more a coincidence than a real plan. But he uses the opportunity that life gives him to perceive a certain goal. And ultimately, of course, being in a castle, having the riches of a castle, will be better than sitting in this kind of open wagons. This was all shot at twilight, in fact. I mean, this is not day for night shooting. It's mostly a twilight shooting. I mean, the fact that she has to go up is a little bit strange, I feel now. The argument is, you know, the inside of a castle, but that feels to me like a weak argument. It seems to be more us being Gerard Soterman and me, or perhaps even the studio, wanting now to put the two, the male and the female, together, and so they have to do this adventure together. The original plan of that scene perhaps was more that Martin, of course, feels that he cannot leave Agnes alone with that group of outlaws, and that he is absolutely sure that if Summer will probably rape her in his absence, so that's why he take her. But that is not very clear from the way it was shot or phrased in the dialogue. This is one of the few scenes that were shot on stage. This little chimney that we built in the studio in Madrid at the end of the movie. There's only one other piece, and I'll tell you later, what is done on stage. But everything else, all this is all, whatever you see is all reality. In fact, we had, as I said, no money to do something else. Look at the child. She is attended to there. And the parents are sitting around the bed, indicating that not that the girl is asleep, but indicating that the girl is probably sick. And the mother grabs the child and basically takes it away. But we should not forget that this child was sick in the bed, which plays a part later. So this was shot in the inside. This is all the inside of the castle that we have seen before. It's the castle of Belmonte. And this same castle was used in the movie El Cid with Charlton Heston. Mostly, I think, for some exteriors, and we shot it nearly in the same time, which was the spring, during springtime. But Charlton Heston also in his, I think, in his memoirs, recounts that was the worst time to be in this castle. It was extremely cold during our shoot, and it was extremely cold during his shoot on El Cid. And there is no heating in the castle. There were no trailers. There were no cars. There was not really to warm up. People had to sit around a little fire, the actors, being miserable and irritated that we couldn't provide better things. Especially the American actors, of course, being accustomed to trailers and to be taken care of, were extremely disappointed. We didn't know better as Europeans, we thought it was normal. But there was no personal privacy at all in any place. So it was hard on the actors and led to a lot of irritation and anger, which made the shooting of the movie even more miserable than it was already because of the cold. So I would say that was not a happy shoot. In fact, it was the worst shoot of my life, I would say. And of course, the whole movie displays so much darkness and shadows. Probably it fits the shoot that everybody was also miserable.